Good morning, or whatever it is, wherever you are. So right now, the map and the lineage site, well, my map, well, I think I have the only map. Jason has his lineage site, which I think is MySQL. I have my family trees, and that uses the same database as all of the life points on the map. So if we pull up like the last 2 days, the server may have to wake up. And all of this is running on, well, there's a little API server in Rails that's running on Heroku, so it's also a Heroku Postgres database, which is what I was familiar with. I don't think I can actually do the home page here because I'm logged in. Yeah, so that's going to go to dashboard. Getting started. They rename it to elements instead of apps. Yeah, there's still add-ons. But that's... So right now, we're at there. And if we break... Oh! I didn't check my numbers. Maybe that will last long enough. I thought it was 1 million. I might want to double check that. Oh, nope. It is 8 million. Oops. I knew my numbers were somewhere around there. Yeah, so 50 is not... Apparently they removed a standard 1 at some point. is a lot. These things are just absolutely frightening. So no row limit. We have no RAM? Database for direct SQL. I think followers is for like clones and multi-hosting. But yeah, that's our price option right now. If we leave this server here, I think that they're more or less based on AWS. So if you had something a little bit better there, the problem is that I'm concerned that even if I could get something cheaper, it's not gonna be great. Oh my gosh, I didn't want to poke that open. Managed, well, I think for the kind of stuff I'm doing, it's not really a good NoSQL application. Managed relational database, document database. I think Cassandra is more key value. Parts of it are a graph database, but some of it is just facts. I'm assuming quantum ledger is essentially a blockchain thing. Relational database service on top of these things. Data warehousing. That's kind of data warehousing, but we still need to do... do querying. So analytics apps. S3 data lake? Well, they do essentially have log files. Maybe this is for more like batch query type of things. Query across petabytes of structured semi-structured data, data warehouse. Results of your queries back to S3. I think the big problem with this is going to be the name queries. Now, there's going to be far fewer names than players or lives. I don't know if this says anything when it connects here. I do not have a local instance currently. I want to make sure I'm actually going to stay in Postgres before I build one up. All right, nothing too terribly fancy there. All right, so we are going to have, is it a life? Life dot where, how do we do not? Dot not dot where? Okay, actually it's like active record not null. Where dot not? I mean, that would read better. This is not an indexed query. Well, yeah, maybe it isn't. Maybe just doing the little syntax, source code syntax like that could have worked too. I don't know if it's more efficient. Yeah, about those 8 million rows. So we have heading towards 4 million names. So if you kept a separate name-only database, that would maybe last you another 2.5 years. Well, 3, 4, a little bit more than that. So we couldn't just keep with our current setup for that part and then have other stuff in a different environment. And as long as we're here, I should just start that from scratch. This one is at 1072, 712. I swear there was a bigger disparity between this one and the homepage one last time I looked. I still kind of want to understand what this is for. Advanced Query Accelerator Compute Cluster. They're assuming you know what a data warehouse is. Yeah, they say per hour, and then they say per terabyte. I guess it's a little bit of both. Provision compute capacity. Yeah, I don't know that we're petabyte scale. Is there a way, because I don't have my local instance, I can do the cloud one probably. Actually, I might also be able to get that in Heroku stats. So if we go to data server, Postgres basic, I guess their row count is still 7 million, so they're a little bit out of date. 5.7 gigabytes. Six tables? I wonder if those are all management tables. Because I think I've only... Well, no, I have a couple file management tables that are going to be very small. That's definitely... Doesn't seem like it's just directly appropriate to this. I just don't quite get what it is yet. They don't define a data warehouse, though. We don't know anywhere. More compute nodes. Yeah, I don't think I need a cluster. It's one database when you provision a cluster. It'll load data and run queries on your data. Enterprise data warehouse. Flat files, operational system, warehouse, metadata, summary data, raw data. So we're taking multiple databases to produce reporting databases. Current and historical data in a single place. Operational systems. I mean, in a sense, we do have like map logs and we have life logs. We're only really using a database for life logs right now, though. Facts and dimensions. Torchi is data considered essential components. A separate ETL tool. Staging area inside the data warehouse itself? Staging tables, target tables. Well, maybe there's some transformation that goes on there. Copy of information from the source transaction systems. I guess we consider the life logs the source systems. Architectural complexity provides the opportunity to. Data from multiple sources. I mean, there are technically separate logs, but let's consider tables in a database. Database isolation level lock contention. Right, because you pull it out once, then you query from there. Even if the source transaction systems do not. Multiple source systems, codes and descriptions. It's definitely targeted at something else. So I don't know that it could be made to work for our purpose. All right, okay, so RDS is their version. From what I remember, this was also kind of expensive. This is its own thing. Oh, well, it does say it's Postgres compatible. Well, let's look closer to home first. It keeps doing that. If we were to just use this, we get a price per hour. And I'm assuming this is just straight up operating time, not like active query time. Yeah, so for an analytics process, that per hour pricing would be great. So what do we got in a typical month? We've got, this is price per hour, 24 hours in a day times 30 days. So 720 times 0.018, already more than I'm currently doing. And that's for like your smallest little baby thing, and I don't know what that'll do. So that's probably, well, no, that's more than what Heroku's charging. So Heroku is probably already kind of sharding a machine out to multiple things. So this is for a 1-year term. I guess it's kind of a long-term project. And this actually, oh, monthly. That's close to what Heroku's doing. Oh, partial upfront, all upfront. 106 per year. And they could run a very small profit on that. Oh, and actually, they would probably do 3-year instances and just like recycle them if. Right. No, probably that's partial upfront. What did I type wrong here? That's 18. Oh, because it's a 3-year term. So that would be a small cost drop, and it would just be a straight up database. Probably, well, I don't know what you can support on a micro instance. This probably relates to EC3 stuff, so we'd have to look up stats on those. There's like a different feature. No, it's EC2. Instance types. A1. It was kind of a T3, wasn't it? And it's a oh, it's a DBT3, but presumably it's going to be a T3, same thing as this. 2 virtual CPU. I don't think it's going to be running too hard. 1 gigabyte memory. I think they did say it was 4, one of the enhanced ones. Network performance. Well, these are probably less without all the other stuff. On-demand pricing, spot pricing. If it was a database, it would effectively have to be reserved instance. A1 medium. We were looking at T3 micro. That was the 1-year term. All up front 103. Yeah, so the database things have to be including storage and other stuff in that somewhere. All right. That's console. aws.amazon.com. Why do you keep opening that one? And then if we did a complete conversion to the cloud native thing. Oh, okay. Huh. You've got this as database engines, but this is the Aurora page. Okay, so it's supposedly faster. 1/10 the cost. Oh, managed by relational database. Demand instances. Well, unfortunately, this is not a demand thing. I don't know if instance hour consumed, because it's supposed to be a cloud database, which might mean it's query scalable. Is launched until it's stopped or deleted. Well, databases kind of just keep their stuff in memory, don't they? One secret aimants, 10-minute minimum charge. This might be for like big cloud computing jobs. No instances to manage. Capacity automatically scales up or down to meet your application workload needs and shuts down during periods of inactivity. Pay for database storage. Database capacity to IR your database. So this is harder to predict because we don't know the usage. Do I have anything in my Heroku stats about usage? I maybe might for the app, if not for the database. Data clips, durability settings. Yeah, the higher tier databases might have some stuff. Metrics. Metrics are not currently available for this app. Running higher tier dynos. Yeah, so I'd have to do my own metric tracking. But given that the database is often asleep when I go to it, I'm assuming it's not going to be very much. Now, is this scalable? Or is this I have to manually turn it on and off? Does it just says that the complexity of managing database instances and capacity automatically start up, shut down, and scale to match your needs. Database instance unless it's actually running. Several times per day or week. I mean, that's not necessarily that low volume, but I don't actually know. Certainly unpredictable. "22 hours. Usage total for 24 hours." So this is the activity periods within that. Okay. So for most of that, we were using a couple of compute nodes. Then we were using a bunch. Then we were using a bunch more. Total hours. The rate's the same. charges. That's 24 hours, but that's for a pretty active one. AC hours, 80 gigabytes of storage. We were at megabytes, right? Oh, no, that's still 5.7 gigabytes. 0.10 per gigabyte month. Well, that's still 80 gigabytes was 26 cents. That's not too bad. And the ACU hours were the main part of that. And that's a low usage example, but with bigger storage. Maybe. Explain compute scaling. That's for the, this isn't necessarily the serverless version. That was the pricing. I don't see introduction. Forming a proof of concept. Prescriptive guidance. Serverless tutorial. Setting up your environment. AWS. You might want to do a special user. Or certainly might want a user for the query database. And right now that's all in the same Heroku app, so it have to be the same thing that's writing to it for updates. Although technically I guess I could deploy the same app twice and have one doing updates and one doing queries. Might be things I should be looking into offline. I mean, processor requirements, ill-defined. Default VPC. DB subnet. VPC. Oh boy. RDS operations. Yeah, networking might be a challenge here. If virtual something cluster. Virtual private cloud. That might actually be a problem if I need to get to Roku stuff. Is in a virtual private cloud. Oh, I guess there is one other option here. Let's see, this. Does this go back to. Whoop. I want to do that. Add-ons. Data stores. Probably not going to be very different. Roku Postgres. Oh. And that's about it. DB, let's see, a legacy DB cluster and a VPC, DB security group, default VPC. I might be up before that. VPC security group. And this is just the prerequisites. Try to provide credentials and you access them. Well, initial setup is not going to be... This is something I have to do offline. Administrator IAM. Just need to lock away the root user credentials. I know I stopped using the default account for like most of my other things. There's a little checklist they've got in IAM. I haven't looked at Google Cloud. I don't know that they do the kinds of things that would be good for my applications. I have two slight biases that will make other things easier. One is that it's currently on Postgres and I'd be easier not to rewrite the database stuff. And the other is that I'm currently running the server on Heroku, and I think they run on AWS, so that would make the network more adjacent. Yeah, define free for how long and for what. This is all marketing junk. Where is the actual definition of what you offer? Free products, free credit. Cloud Run, Compute Engine, NoSQL database, Cloud Storage, PubSub, Cloud Functions, App Engine, Analytics Data Warehouse. might be more batch job oriented. Was there like, or did I see the open source databases somewhere else? NCSQL, well, we'd have to undo some Postgres stuff. Compute engine. Share results. This sounds like a not necessarily a live database. Well, RDS would be the simplest translation. I don't think I'm actually running queries very much of the time, but I don't currently have any analytics on that. So I was looking at the serverless Aurora, which supposedly has a Postgres compatible layer, which would be a little bit of storage plus actual compute time. And I don't think people are hitting it like all day. Data scientists. In-memory analysis server. Of course, you'll pay for the in-memory. Was there anything else that looked open source databases? Fully managed open source databases. Cloud SQL for Postgres. Try it for free. Let's add in the free tier stuff. API and reference. Pricing details. SQL Server. RAM, storage capacity, price. I see, I'm not... Okay, maximum storage capacity. So right there, our database is currently 5.7 and growing. Or is that, no, that's 3,000. That would be, that was gigabytes, right? Yeah, gigabytes. That's good. Okay, so that would be fine. I don't know how much RAM we need. That is one of those poorly defined things. Dedicated core instances. Do I still have RDS pricing up? So your smallest is 0.18. Wait, is that 0.18 or 0.018? 0.018. No, it's not as expensive. A dedicated RDS instance for a 3-year term, well, that would be monthly cost, $622. I don't know what that turned out as the 3-year. These are different things. And then there's other. So there's there's instance pricing, and then there's separate pricing? Is this like the higher end build your own computer stuff or what? Because this is like more than the price of that entire instance. Pricing examples. Shared CPU. Okay, so that actually works out to $9 a month, which is about where we're at. So that's kind of a wash versus the Amazon stuff. Yeah. So there would be, and this is not. This is more. This is the data warehousing thing again, which is definitely targeted at different purposes, and I don't know enough about it to easily. It seems like it'd be a big research project to determine if it would work for this. Yeah, this is like down and dirty. It's not like what do you use it for, or how do you use it? What's it good at? And I think data warehousing is not. I mean, LifeLock is sort of a data warehouse, but what I've been gathering, data warehouses are like you combine a bunch of different databases, then maybe spit out some other databases to use for reporting stuff. And granted, that's kind of what we're doing with LifeLog data. We're loading it and then making it a reporting thing. But it sounds like a way bigger solution than what we're doing. Something like this might be a better overview, and I just have to set aside a lot of time to actually read it. And like understand how things actually work. We might get into some research stuff here. This seems like it might provide a scalable interface. Oh, I guess it's possible I'm using some Postgres extensions. And if they're Postgres compatible, they might not have extensions. So I don't want to deal with that much user management right now. Also, having to use a custom sign-in URL is not a great user experience. I guess you'd set the bookmark up and that'd be that. I don't really know what my requirements are. I have a database size. The virtual private cloud might be an issue, using it with Heroku. Oh, what? Hmm. I can change the rules on mine. I don't know if they're going to be using one. From the application or service to the DB cluster. That's the database. REST API from Heroku to Aurora. Heroku's data solution architecture team. So they were a much larger customer who was probably paying for one of the bigger databases in runtime. Yeah, they can do follower databases, so they run in some kind of higher up tier. Create a new database. So followers is a Postgres feature? AWS hardware, but their AWS account owns the database instance, not Veracreds. Print just gives carte blanche access to the instance. Aurora instance to follow a non-Aurora instance, you have to use something like logical replication or data migration service. Well, I could really just rerun the import or dump a database backup for my purposes. We only update the data once a day. And I'm thinking about doing some restructuring while we're doing stuff. So I might build it up locally and then dump that back up. They set up secure S3 bucket with a recent backup. The date wall file. So they set up a regular Postgres instance inside their cloud where they could then do the other stuff. I guess there's the question of, can Aurora load a Postgres backup? You think the data migration service maybe could do that? Temporarily turning off services. Large binary objects. Not our issue. Migrate indices, foreign keys, triggers. To reapply all of these running SQL scripts. Well, if we're going to run SQL scripts, then we can do all... Well, as long as we can access it, we could run the migrations. And a 1 terabyte database. And if they were running on Heroku before... They don't talk about their actual hosting solution. AWS RDS to Heroku change database URL. Authorizing Heroku access to RDS instance. Okay, so that's not a big deal. So in Amazon, this is regular RDS, parameter group. Force SSLL? I mean, it's supposed to be SSL. SSL. RDS force ASL. This is not going to be straight RDS. All incoming IP ranges. That's a little bit scary. Oh, root certificate. Okay, I missed that. I also don't know if this has something to do more with RDS than Aurora, but it seems like it's probably possible. That's the same thing. Heroku to Lambda. I don't know if it's that infrequently used. Maybe. Active record for Aurora, Amazon Aurora serverless. Well, MySQL, but I don't know if that means it still does Postgres. Oh, yeah, migrate Postgres to MySQL. You know, I think it used to only do MySQL. But yeah, if this thing only does MySQL, then that would be why you would do this. But our adapter as of yet does not. Oh, well, we only use MySQL. I guess because Heroku only does Postgres SQL? Why would you use it in the first place? Uh, why did you need a custom adapter for this? It's just a database URL, right? Maybe serverless has something extra going on? Access DNS to your DNS engine to accept only SSL encrypted connections and then permit all ranges. Okay, that's kind of the same thing we ran into before. And we would actually, even with RDS, we would drop our costs a little bit if we did a reserved instance. This is potentially the Aurora. Let's see, your RDS. We're looking at BC2. All right, I might need to. Maybe I should actually look into setting up another AWS user, but I'm not. I don't want to deal with that now. Don't know what my requirements are. We're gonna have to try stuff and see if it works. Because I'm not running it right now, and I don't really have any. I'd have to have a higher tier thing to have any kind of metrics on it. Do we have a default VPC? Oh, must create a security group. If you don't, where do I do that? Isolated cloud resources. Here are VPCs. I'm assuming this is the default. Port, if it has a default, it's configured to support DB clusters. Tenancy, default VPC, yes. Okay. Route table, DHCP options, state, CIDRs, float tags. Maybe it's these attributes that are set up to support databases. If you specify the default VPC you create the cluster, you must create a VPC security group that authorizes connections from the application or service to the cluster with the database. Security group option on the VPC console. Okay, so we had, so there's like default VPC security group. Docker sets some stuff up. Some kind of launch wizard sets some stuff up. You must use, to create VPC security groups, you must create a VPC security group. Does that fall under this? Okay, certificate, SSLCA. Is this a MySQL thing? From an IP range. Oh, to user require SSL. That might be a Postgres thing too. But they're not talking about what we need to do here. Authorizes connections from the application or service to the cluster. The default DB subnet group. The first DB cluster you create in the region. Create the default when it creates the DB cluster. Authorizes connections from the application or service to the DB cluster. We don't have a DB cluster to authorize yet. User-defined VPC. Having at least 2 subnets, each in a separate availability zone. We can rebuild from life logs. I don't need failover. Well, actually, that's for availability, which it's not the end of the world. Perform RDS operations. I'm going to have to check and see if the current Heroku one is using a default port, but I'm not going to bring that up on stream. Oh, can I find out? So that's the database. I wonder if we can find out what the current region of our server is. Framework, slug size. It just says United States. What does that mean in AWS regions? Earth's geographic regions. US. Yeah, this is Heroku regions, not AWS regions. Oh, provider. I don't see a... Hello. Aicha? How's it going? Region EU. Uh-oh. So that is Frankfurt. There's Frankfurt. That should map to US. I don't know if I need an API key for this. Ow. Yeah, I've never lost anybody really close to me, so I'm sorry. Uh, I can't even imagine how you're feeling right now. All right, you're middle button paste. Okay, I was a little bit suspicious of that. I could see somebody going into streams just to kind of get away and cope, but so you're US East one. Let's see. This is just describes the rules. You must create. This is setup stuff. Create in a VPC. If we create it, it's also saying if you put it in the default. Hmm. Oh, here's actually creating a group. And they say we're going to use something default. Default VPC. If you specify the default, you must create a security group. The region and that's if they create a the region. No, you. This is North Virginia. Wait, that's US East 1. US East 1. Okay, I don't need that one. I barely need this right now. VPC. Select the region, security groups, create security group. Security group name cannot be edited. Do we have any character restrictions here? 255 characters long. EC2 classic. All ASCII characters. Spaces. Isn't it the data server? I guess for the database it would be. Hopefully description can be edited. Select create. And that's create. Inbound rules. Custom TCP. I mean, one option is I just get a Linode and do it that way. Which would roughly map to the RDS instance, I think. I guess it ends up being a little bit more expensive. So I don't know how the performance and stuff maps. But then we wouldn't be network adjacent to the server, or maybe I could move the server over there, but now I'm managing the web server as well. So there's that. Port value. Now you see, this is where I want to look at Heroku settings. To see if they're using standard ports or not. Actually, this is a little bit what... this is just Amazon RDS. They don't have a subcategory for like MySQL. So that's from everything. I don't have anything about security groups. Well, Anywhere. Yep. Oh, that's add rule. Okay. There's no save rules. Rules for outbound traffic. Cluster, you can select the default VPC. Use default for DB subnet group. All right, so that was prerequisites. Now this is, well, it says an Aurora. Getting started MySQL. They only have. Does this have getting started? Here's this version of security. Permissions, RDS operations, virtual private cloud. Okay, there's SSL again. Oh. No, that was a T3 that we were looking at earlier. Standalone instance of PostgreSQL. We might have to set up the SSL to be able to access it, though. Okay. Manage database passwords. Yeah, the security stuff might be a little bit of trouble. SSL. Migrating data, managing. This isn't like how to create it stuff. What's a virtual private cloud? So Aurora is part of RDS apparently. Oh, not available in all RDS regions. So Aurora is an option for RDS. Really, you have a limit of 40 databases. That's interesting. Okay, we drop some stuff down here. Unfortunately, I can't easily see what options I'm losing there. So it's Aurora with Postgres compatibility. Ideally, I think we don't need very much uptime. There's only one Postgres version. Provision single master. Oh, yep. I don't know that I'm doing anything too terribly version specific. DB cluster identifier. Across all DB clusters owned by your AWS region. Okay. What we're doing for buckets. Master username. I guess using a random one would be better. I think the current one's still Postgres though. Or you can specify your own password. I think the password probably came from Heroku's database setup before. Well, actually, that probably did have a random user and a random password. Capacity settings, minimum, cannot set 0. But if it's Aurora, oh, maximum, okay. I don't think we're going to scale up enough that that's going to be an issue. But I'm still going to put some kind of limit on it. When the timeout is reached. Timeout is reached. Only charge for database storage. Yeah, I think... 5 minutes. I mean, I could see someone's session being longer than that. Default VPC. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. Subnet group. Default. Oh, wait, we did create a security group for this. Enable the SCSQL HTTP endpoint. You can query your database from inside the RDS console. Connectionless web service. This sounds like a specific thing. I don't know that we need that. Password and Kerberos not available for this version. Database options, encryption enabled. Backtrack disabled. Delete protection enabled. All right. It's not necessarily even. Add item. There's a database type. Host name I don't have yet. Is there a separate database name from... Is this just the database... I'm not sure this database cluster. It's asking me for username and password. Oh. Actually, I might not want to use all the crazy characters on this one, because it might go into a URL. All right, so password, master username. Let's start with a letter. And I just lost that generate button. All right, we might have to create this a few times and change stuff. Okay, so this is... I guess this is a database. Status creating. It has a bunch of subnets. Monitoring logs and events configuration. Your credential details. It might take a few minutes to launch. Database cluster ID. Is there anything in the Heroku doc about how you form the URL? There's a certificate. Database URL. So format, username, password, at hostname/db. Right, Heroku config. Oh, database URL with the parameter of the certificate. What is the actual address of this, though? Ah, endpoint. So that's going to be the host name, username, password. Yeah. So, I don't even know if I have that configured. I'm just gonna have to test this locally, I think. And let's see. Right now, we are technically configured for all of that stuff. That is from AWS, RDS combined certificate perps. That's going to be the same. All right, did I have any stuff going on here? I forgot like a backup spans. I should probably see if I can connect this without the SSL and then see about setting that up. All right, .env, database URL, yeah, currently localhost. Let's see, if I do create the current database for testing, I'm eventually going to have to tear it down and, well, or migrate it to do the new one. So PostgreSQL, I may still have, no, I closed the other windows. Well, this is the awkward part about doing this streaming is sometimes it has to deal with passwords. Okay, I messed something up there at... All right, so username, password, at... that's probably slash database name. That's database URL. Actually, is that only going to be for because Rails also has the database YAML. Do we have anything in there? Postgres Unicode, default, database, development, Postgres password, database server test. Okay, yeah, there shouldn't be anything in there. As long as it doesn't say like connecting to when it does something. Okay, successfully created. And if I did this by default from here, it would create the development version, which would be probably fine for testing. Let me just test that off screen real quick, just to be sure. So this is going to be Rails. Is it db create? I mean, it's technically created. I forget, does db create? Well, it'll complain if it's already created, I'm sure. Okay, connection refused, which we made done of port standard. Oh, so it's trying to connect to localhost still. And the host name is already up, so that's not a big deal. Oh, I'm not running this in Foreman. Oh, and Foreman run doesn't work here. Does Foreman... I know some things work better in other shells. Of which we have many options, actually. It doesn't actually break down the different types. So So that would be a regular command prompt. And I guess, yeah, I don't have an easy way to get this from a directory, so I had to go find this. Documents. To transform and run commands in here. Or do we have to set up tasks? Yep, fork isn't implemented. Does not keep my directory. I could technically run it in the WSL shell. File access could be a little awkward. We're just trying to get a... We're not doing any big... Well, for the import task would be some big data access stuff. Yep, fork's not implemented. I don't think that can pass arguments easily. Oh, this was PowerShell. Okay. There's that. Oh, this is probably going to be a different, maybe a different version of Foreman. Yeah, I might have all the wrong gems and stuff for this. Yeah. Proc file dev. I didn't specify the proc file. One of the things I hate about this is that it does nothing if the task doesn't exist. Well, it tried. Connection cannot connect to server. Well, yeah, it tried to do the server. So we probably don't have our permissions set up right somewhere. We've got both a database, we've got a security group, we've got the virtual private cloud. And maybe they really only intend for this to be done from stuff inside the virtual security group. So I need to investigate that. I don't... In the long run, I probably don't need to be able to access it from here. It's just more... I need to be able to figure out if it's working and test the SSL and stuff. But I also need to get water right now. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Environs. Oh, that looks like a... Look at the little baby items.
do. Alright, let's go find... What's her face? What's her face, McFace face? PB. We're not doing anything with PB right now. I don't have an email. I don't think I have any email. Yep. Sam's a dick. He lies to me all the time.
What? How did he not die from that? He's literally getting hit. And he just stopped getting hit. Oh! Oh man, that was
Welcome back. So I don't really know how to... Oh, I did have that open. I don't even know where to start. I guess this is essentially RDS. Connecting to PG admin, which add server. They just say you can just do it. Now, they're not talking about the security settings because I kind of need to do troubleshooting in terms of... Yeah, there's troubleshooting. Cannot connect to server timed out. Connect to server, connection timed out. The host name used the DB instance endpoint and the port number used is correct. Public accessibility. The DB instances. Public accessibility. That seems high. CPU utilization, DB connection 0. No events. Oh, we actually have maintenance windows. Okay. No tags. Subnet groups. Availability zones. How do I do that? Connectivity and security. Security groups, VPC, subnets. Publicly accessible. Yeah, because they offered... Oh, true, false. Okay. And vice versa. Okay, so this must be a modify operation. This is probably okay, but... Scaling configuration, data API, password authentication. Backups, parameter groups, cluster parameter group. Pfft. No explanation. Okay, so there's nothing in there. They say it's possible. They don't say how. Right-click the instance and select Modify. Serverless does not support this. You must connect to it from within the VPC. Okay. Didn't we find articles? Maybe I wasn't searching specifically for serverless. AWS Lambda. RDS. RDS proxy? Well, this is a different kind of serverless. Different kind of serverless. So it can only be done from within the... Well, from within what? What was that? What was that called? The, From within the VPC. Yeah, I probably can't add Heroku to my VPC. You can set up an SSH tunnel from your computer to an EC2 instance in that DB. Is this that we're going to relaunch it from a snapshot? Well, yeah, but then we have an EC2 instance running, which is the same as having a DB, an RDS server running. Maybe, depending on your application, that would make sense. But if we just needed to be able to answer queries at any time. So we basically scrap this one and make one. So this is still RDS. If I'm just doing this for testing purposes, I might be able to, well, pause it or delete it if I need to go do some other stuff for a while. RDS. Oh, it's a DB cluster. Okay. This is actually useless for my purposes. All right, to say I couldn't do that. Database protection. To disable database protection. No, that's just reporting it. Erase authentication. Not be applied immediately. In the next scheduled maintenance. Oh, so this must take it down. Okay, well that's successfully modified. For active databases, I totally understand all those precautions. Unfortunately, I guess I need to use test names for now, because that's the name I would like to use. I guess I just use a test name. Pre-built configurations. Okay. So there's. So what does Aurora look like if it's not serverless? This is regular EC2, Aurora pricing. Yeah, you don't even have the size of databases I'm using. So supposedly it's faster, or I'm looking at using, and you pay a lot extra for that. So we would just go strig their Postgres. I don't like I'm doing anything. Sample template. That'd be for 12 months. Each calendar month. 20 gigabytes. Is that like any 12 months or what? I know AWS, I'm long past like any free things. So this is technically dev test. This has to be. I mean, I feel like I'm gonna be creating and destroying these things at this point, based on our previous experience. I could probably reuse that stuff. Standard classes, memory optimized, burstable. I'm not going to be doing bursting. Does Postgres not go on the smaller ones? Your documentation is wrong, guys. Maybe I'm in multi-zone? Are you memory optimized? Are you burstable? Not EBS optimized. What does burstable class mean? Oh, standard classes are M, R, and X, T. They don't really define. I guess that would be an EC2 thing. General purpose. What do these letters mean? Okay, compute optimized I get. Memory is R and X. Accelerated can be P, Inf, G, and F. Storage is I, D, and H. General purpose is T, M, and they don't really define the difference between those. This says it's burstable versus standard. Oh, and this is A. Also, it's also A. Oh, A1, it says significant cost savings are suited for scale out and ARM-based workloads. Well, we don't have that as an option here. Oh, that's T2. Ah, not EBS optimized. I think we were looking at T3 before. T4G are also ARM, but I don't think that's an option here. T3, next generation of burstable general purpose type. Baseline CPU performance, burst CPU. Okay, so they mean low average usage, high burst, which might be appropriate for an infrequently used database. Accumulate CPU below baseline threshold. Opportunity to burst. T3A are probably ARM. Burstable performance. This is like the second generation burstable. Oh, high frequency Xenon. And then all M4, M5, M6. Balanced. EBS optimized. But they start at large. This does not have pricing on it. Looking at large, we're several times the cost. Just a little order of magnitude there. Guess default works. I mean, SSD sounds good for a database. Minimum 20 gigabyte. This is allocated storage. Less than 100 gigabytes for high throughput workloads, higher latencies of the general purpose IO credit balance. Oh, wait, did I leave this? Yeah, I left this on something else. High throughput workloads. Initial general purpose. That removes that. I don't know. Is that a cost impact or what? Cost-effective storage is acceptable for most database workloads. Turning against 64 terabytes. Think about 16 terabytes. 3 IOPS for each gigabit. Maximum 100 IOPS. Larger volumes have better performance. Oh, you know what? That's reserved instances. I wasn't looking at database storage. General purpose per gigabit month. So it's not just the instance cost. And they're suggesting 20. 5.7 will grow over time. Provisioned IOPS is slightly more per gigabyte, and you pay per IOP. Backup storage, snapshot export, and then data transfer. So even if I do the reserved instance, we're still back at about $9 or so. To do serverless, I'd kind of have to convert the server app to be like some kind of Lambda thing to avoid paying for an EC2 instance instead of a database instance. And I'm going to have to monitor database size, because if it's at 5.7 now, it could get to 20 eventually. What are our other options? Okay. Well, let's look at a good landing page. That's where Jason does the game servers. What do they look like? Do they have like examples of doing a database? That was useless. Let's get into a little bit of server maintenance again, though. Secure access, peer authentication by default, local system users. Ah, okay, so the local server user, you can add passwords, securely manage, not advised to listen to public IP address. What are you suggesting here? Oh, is this a web service? Well, that sounds like a port. So this is a SSH daemon to a server, but we need another server to access it. I could potentially just run the server on there. Now we're maintaining a whole bunch of stuff. So they're like, just do it. What does the dedicated CPU? I guess it's shared. So there's your basic. 1 gigabyte RAM, 1 core. 25 gigabyte SSD would be a thing you'd have to revisit in a couple of years. So I know Jason does that. There's also DigitalOcean has been popular among people. I think they end up with basically the same. Yeah, $5 a month. And it's just bigger and bigger for the most part. 25 transfer CPU, pretty much the same. Price doubles if we increase storage. Attach additional block storages. 10 cents per gigabyte. So 10 gigabytes per dollar. Manage databases. This 10 gigabyte. $15 a month. And we had it to be even the same, we'd be at 30. Which really makes me wonder if the $5 ones it'd cut it. Because like all of the things that have a database in them are way more expensive. I guess I'm doing 9, so there'd be 10. That's already 15 with kind of insufficient disk space. To solve the access problem, I'd pretty much have to move the server to the same network, if not the same machine. Maybe the same machine, because well, I guess Heroku does non-mutable storage, so they kind of have to have it separate. There's just no getting around that. All right. Serverless was a confused term. What if we can? What was it? What Aurora? Oh, wait. Maybe they only had the database there? You want to move the database. They haven't talked about what's accessing it. Maybe they were only using the Heroku for the database. Secure S3 bucket. They use that to port it in, which says they didn't. Which kind of says they didn't have direct access to it. Which we also. So yes, they must have been running the actual API service already somewhere in the VPC. That's just an RDS database. It's the same thing. AWS Lambda. RDS in general. Microsoft, based on Heroku, wanted to push more architecture into AWS. Set a private subnet, production VPC, private subnet, public subnet, peering connection with Guild's private. Well, that's probably another preview feature. Right, the premium feature. To have a private space, which is why you can do a private subnet, public subnet. Username, password, RDS endpoint, SSL cert, SSL mode. Oh, well, that's extra nice. Constant command in the next 24 hours. Yeah, and then there's peer. Now, does peering mean you can get into a VPC? Private space peering. Establish a private network connection between diners running in private space and does not traverse the public internet. But this is a private space, which Heroku Enterprise, yeah. So I could do it if I was on some high-end plan on Heroku. Main route table, non-main route table. Opening up the main route table to all traffic. Overridden by any non-main route table. $2.5 for multiple people. But to get that in a private subnet, you need to have a peering arrangement with private spaces. So that says it is possible. It is not possible in my scenario. So scalable is pretty much still off the table. $100 GB, which is the max. I don't have a really good dynamic scaling storage based on allow the storage to increase once the specified threshold is exceeded. Well, that actually takes some pressure off of that. I'll still be paying for it, but you don't have to worry about watching it for the overflow. Yeah, I might just have to try this and see how it works out. Maximum. I mean, I don't expect it to get that big. Do not create a standby instance. So this would be default configured if you did production. But you're going to pay for both of these instances, so that doubles your costs right there. I'm going to set a public IP address and devices inside the VPC. Well, we need Amazon EC2 instances inside the VPC. Well, for Heroku, we're going to have that. It suggests it doesn't let you select it. Did I just leave this here too long? The page is still thinking. Fix that in a minute. Okay, the page had timed out. Oh, this is like a subzone. Okay. Yeah, the URL is going to essentially be passwords. Oh, this one has delete protection disabled. Interesting. This is considered a test, right? Estimated monthly costs. Okay, the storage was about my calculation. What's up with the DB instance? Did I read the wrong thing here? Oh, actually, that might be for the non-reserved pricing. That's storage. I guess I don't need that. Kind of done with you. This is RDS PostgreSQL storage. Is that right for non-reserved? That's closer to what I saw. 1314. Oh, maybe they're using a 31 instead of 30. Which, for some months, it makes sense. Or maybe it's even 30.5 for an average. Monthly calculator. Oh, jeez. So we're already at the... You know what? That one thing was 15 baseline for database. And that's just for the database. To get access to it, well, if it was actually public. We can drop the instance price a lot with reserved. Which I presume you can come in and do that later. And, general purpose, managed databases. Yeah, the disk, we're already over 5, so the disk is looking a little bit small. And we can drop this price with prepayment. Oh, yep. Need to set that stuff up. All right, now this is test one. Exception caught, r.ii is null. Maybe I took too long again. Oh. I guess that was only for the front end update? But it's still creating. Alright, so user password will be the same. I might be able to predict some of that name. It's got an ID in there, so only some of it. Can I already see the name here? Yeah, not monitoring configuration. There's an ARN. Resource ID. Maybe it's not available yet. So first, I think we have options to stay with Postgres, though, which means I probably am going to want a local development environment to be building stuff up. Last time I ended up installing the default Postgres package, which meant that I had the database server essentially running on my machine all the time. And it is only one database server. If I had any reason to be working on a bunch of different applications that had different database versions, that could be a bit of a problem. What I used to do on my old MacBook was I would actually install different versions of Postgres under their own little directories, and I would have the database local to the project. So you would start up that database in that project. I don't really know if you can do that effectively. Well, maybe not with the default package. If you installed all the Postgres to different things, there'd probably be ways to get it to start up from a particular directory. The other thing I had poked at was using Dockers for the database. But I think I tried that and it did not immediately get network access. We could, is it hub? We could maybe make another run at figuring that out. Okay, so they've got an official image. Let's see what. Right, if I'm mapping folders, I have to use a certain shell. I might be running it in the console here. And has this restarted since the last time I rebooted or something? Looks like it. Oh, newer. Maybe have I tried this on this computer before? Or maybe it's always newer if you downloaded it. It's Postgres in general. Docker run. In the entry port with initdb. Meant for use by users. Docker run. An instance, I guess. Because that's not RMRT. So I guess that inits it with a password? And then have a compatible shell. Oh, does it only make 1 dB? Well, if you can connect to it, you should be able to do more. Like documents the storage, we're introduced to this host system, internal volume management. If we don't delete it and reuse the container, if it doesn't access, doesn't exist. No indication of performance there. And presumably this takes care of the port stuff for the server by itself. Anyway, how are you doing? Is there a... refresh on this? Backing up. Well, that means it might exist. Backing up, nothing. Ah, endpoint. There we go. The URL includes a... I wonder if including the database name is an issue. That might actually, that's something I could test if I was connecting to a Docker image with that style of URL. Maybe we could do some of that kind of testing here. Yeah, connect to server. So we have all that network debugging. All right, what is the default Postgres password for our old localhost? Dash name. Oh, did that like daemonize it in the background? Now, and database. All right, so that's localhost, probably default port. Okay, so there's no port there. All right, so you said for this thing to connect to itself, minus networks. You didn't say anything about network before. What's H? Minus user. Is some Postgres the database name? Wait, is this Docker help or PSQL help? That's PSQL help. H is capital H is HTML. Apparently undocumented. H, host name. Oh, okay. So it's not localhost, it's a whole data server? Not translate host name, a whole data server to address, name, or known service host. Maybe they're thinking of accessing something else? I may have to look at their Docker file and see if they're actually mapping anything here. Oh, local host. It's not necessarily a domain socket in that case. It's acts. Is the server running on port? Well, I don't know. Is it? Description is longer, so that's that. So that's the README. Docker library Postgres. Docker library Postgres. I don't see a Docker file here. Docker library issues. Docker repository. Where's the Docker file? Yeah, that's run update dot. That's not going to be a reference to actually. Readme short content to every image ePro license logo maintainer image Postgres adminer you've got some ports. I guess hub is technically images. Go from GitHub. I'll set its original from command. Wasn't auto built from the Git repo. Okay, yeah, we found that. Docker compose. I want to know what they did with ports. Maybe it's documented. Maybe the run command, but like, if it doesn't by default expose ports, how would you even use it? I might have to do a system map there, but I'm used to using shell commands that take care of all of that for me. Okay, you do have a port map. So it might be exposing a port itself, but not mapping it to the system. Okay, so yes. What is the recommended way to stop a daemonized container? Detached mode. -D. PSA, attach, Docker stop. I didn't mention mapping a port to it somewhere. That might have been handy. Technically running, practically useless. Maybe there's some way to direct connect to an instance. Because you see, it's got its own port. There's a names that's completely cut off and therefore not useful. Connect to a Docker container. There's attach. There's port mapping. Okay. Well, slow JavaScript there. It's like, oh, you're running in dark mode. Let's completely change the screen colors. Run, 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 run. Wasn't quite what I wanted. I changed the thing. Container networking? Published ports. Bridge overlay or Mac VLAN? Does not publish any ports to the outside world. Use the publish flags. A single network using network. Docker network connect. So maybe they were expecting you to do something like this? Because you can't connect to the database with the default sample command. Maybe name is the network name, not the container name, because I didn't see a container name here. Container host name. Assign a name to the container. Whatever that means. Well, they were using this name and... No, I tried filling in what I put there. Oh, network some network. So does name give you a default network? So we did give it a name. Oh, okay. How do we... Start one or more stopped containers. LS all. We did give it a name. Wait, Docker run. What's E? dash network. Database is uninitialized and super password is not specified. You must specify in a non-empty value for the super user. Oh, do I have to re-specify the password when restarting it? And that's on Docker run. It must be environments. That would have to be before the command, right? You must specify in a non-empty value for the super user. Maybe start lost the environment. This is a run. Postgres password. I've got an E9. That environment wouldn't matter to that one. You must specify to a non-empty value for the super user. Great examples. It may significantly aid you in using the image. Must not be empty or undefined. Defaults defined by the Postgres user variable. Postgres sets that trust authentication locally, so as a password is not required to connecting from localhost inside the same container. Connecting from a different host container. So do I have to run init by myself? Created in the entry point, which we can't see because they don't publish their Docker file. Continues playing by runtime. Postgres user. Gotta find a different name in the default database. The value of Postgres user will be used. initdb args. Host auth method. Find a data location. Docker entry point initdb.d. Docker run rm. Config. Okay, I get the conf sample. Config file. Docker run -d, 9 name, environment, Postgres password, Postgres. C options. Hey, see, I'm not sure if this is... We need to stop using this in daemon mode, apparently. I guess I don't need a name in that case. Database system is ready to accept connections. Database system is shut down. Oh, this is the entry point creating the database. So that seems perfectly fine. Am I perhaps not specifying the command correctly so it's going to the default entry point? I'm doing pretty good. I'm puzzled by a couple things here, which explains why I didn't do this last time I set it up. The examples in this for this document should be a little bit better. That seems to be running. You know what? It would be nice to be able to see. You know, until we get the connections running. Actually, let's go back to there. We'll be able to see the console. Not a bad idea. I have to remember to set it up every single day. So I have a database. It pulls up data on this map and among some other things. And I don't know if this is going to make it faster or not, but I am running up on a row limit on my current provider. Well, it'll probably last a while yet, but we're at 8 million out of 10 million rows. So I can see it coming. And it actually failed. Fabulous. We should have woken the server up last time. Usually it doesn't do that. Oh, that's server. Maybe I did a bad range. Yeah, there we go. So we can see all the places that people had lived in this game, which has its own life counter on it. And the Heroku database I'm using has a limit of 10 million rows before it goes to the next price class, which is like $50 a month, which is a little bit there. So I was researching providers, and I also want to get a local database environment set up. And I prefer to do like per project databases so that I can use different database versions and things. And I didn't really set that up last time. I just did the install it on your system just to get up and running. So now I'm trying to figure out my local setup so I can test out some connection stuff. And then I have to figure out connecting to my local cloud database here, which if I can't pause that, I might, well, the next couple days isn't bad. Because that is the running costs for no real reason right now while I try and figure this stuff out. Heroku's default database pretty much is Postgres. I'm kind of familiar with it. I was one of those things where I just kind of wanted to get something up and running. So it is relational. I think that kind of makes sense for what I'm doing. This particular query could be handled with static files. It's just a date range. But when I go to do name searches, I forget what my other Eve was. I think this was one of them recently. When I go to do name searches, and then I'm also thinking of doing like some statistics on number of lives per day, number of murders per day, life lengths. So that seems to me like that would be a better fit for relational than some kind of document store. We've got pretty small records individually. Yeah, so if I was only doing the range queries, I might try to redo it as static files, and you just pick up the right files that had your chunk of data. But for statistics and name searches, I think we need a database. There's also the family trees. So this is another project, and some of these are kind of big. So it takes a little. Sometimes it takes a little bit to run, and then every once in a while it doesn't render. Yeah, kind of the same thing. The did I not leave that open? The stuff, I know this one, you can kind of see it. He uses MySQL for all his stuff that's running the game. Or, well, the sort of back-end accessory services. The game itself, the game is practically a database server itself, handling all of the map data and stuff. Yeah, so this is the other one that's pulling up everybody who has the same family tag on them. Which, I mean, I guess I could have that as either a static file or a document type thing if need be. But if I ever want to do like stats and then the name searches are things that seem better suited to relational. I mean, I might be able to find a more economic option if I didn't do relational, but I don't know if those would be good solutions for the name searches and things. Uh, Whatever. I do Elm on here sometimes. I modify the game, which is written in C++. The API server for this project is written in Ruby. I'm doing some paid work in JavaScript. I've dabbled in all kinds of things. From the SQLs for the databases to microcontroller code. I've been working on Lua for a Stepmania game mode lately. All right, database system is up and running. I did that. Oh, Docker inspect. Okay, well, we got past that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not currently using that kind of service. And I don't know if they would support this many rows well. I'd have to look at all the individual plans, because that's targeted at like blogs and things. GitHub. All right, so this is where we had our basic sample commands. And it's network. So that would be the image names. There's another container on it. Is this also the database name? Network not found. Is that the command I used to start it? Docker run. Oh, nope, we used a command that did not include that. Oop. Which is why it's nice that we're doing RT. We lost the... No, it's not network yet here. It is name. Container. Oh, okay. Network not found. Whole data server. Well, for my purposes, I only need one database at a time. So I guess I've tried their way. Their way doesn't work. Hmm. Hmm. I don't know, I guess I'm one of those people who's always been afraid of getting boxed into a niche. I know I don't do a whole lot of stuff with CSS. I mostly do just enough databases to get done what I need. I did a lot of Fox Pro reporting at one of the companies I used to work for. And I ended up working with some of their databases in various attempts to port the ERP system. But that wouldn't really be a particular strong point. And sometimes I have fun getting into like optimization, where you've got a relatively small scope and you can measure things and really dive into something. Otherwise, it's kind of figuring out complex things and breaking them down, finding solutions that save people a lot of time. And you find people like, building up spreadsheets manually, and you're like, a program can do that. I guess the map is kind of a similar thing. It takes a bunch of text files and presents it in nicer ways. And then you got all this junk to try and do it to run it economically. All right, so what was the default port? Actually, there weren't any port stuff in here. That's for something else. Well, internet should know. Nice. Yeah, I've actually been putting off redoing my own website for years now. Firo. On the advisory, it's typical use. If it isn't, we'll choose the next available port. Okay. Okay, so now there's no network. Was H host? Cannot connect to server. That's trying to do Unix domain sockets. We do need to do a network connection. Is the server running on localhost and accepting team connections on 5432? IP address, I think that means all. Port 5432. Maybe I have to do something for it to map ports out of that thing's container. Docker container accessing host ports. Host port from a Docker container. Natively on Linux. IP address of the Docker 0 interface. macOS and Windows. These are internal IP address, the special DNS name, host.docker internal. Okay. Cannot connect to server. Password authentication failed for user Postgres. Well, we passed in the password to create, and it's just password. Okay, there we go. Oh, it actually is help. Ah, that's the thing I was thinking of. All right, so what databases did it give us? And this means we have been able to connect to something here. List tables. Informational. Per database role settings, data type, tables, roles. Template 0 and template 1. Postgres. So Postgres is the system database. All right. So we were trying to get, let's see, init.env. Okay, yeah, we're back on localhost. Create a database. Okay. I will need to... So that was with port publishing. And that was about what I wanted out of it. So we've got you. And this is where I... Name might be useful as long as it doesn't change networking. Is there a better description of the Docker name command? This would be Docker run options. Assign a name. Assign name and allocate sudo tty. Name test. Yes, a PS doesn't list it. Oh, there it is there over there. Allocate a sudo tty. Interactive bash shell. No real explanation of... I mean, I guess it helps you track these IDs. Do I necessarily need... I don't necessarily need this. I might want to do a thing where I create and start a container, and I might want to end up connecting to it there. It's starting to get to be like kind of lunchtime for me. So I don't know if I want to get into working out all these scripts just yet. I do want to capture the actually working commands. All right, that will allow me to get a local database set up. That's not terribly fancy work. We just need to create a container, set it up to connect to it. Because one thing I'm thinking about is I do have to get a database in here somewhere, and that might just be rerunning the import from scratch, but that will probably take a while. Now, I've been thinking about restructuring the database, and we are kind of building a new database. I might want to import data just to see if all the migrations work properly. But if it's pretty much a cutover, then I don't necessarily need to do that. Well, I am going to need some data to work with as I'm testing stuff, I guess. We're going to have to a couple layers of that translation. Got a little bit of a working plan at least, so if we do reserved instance on RDS, it might be about what I'm paying now. I was kind of hoping for the automatic scaling version, but it doesn't appear to be available from a Heroku instance, or I don't think there's anything similarly, well, at my scale, cheap. That I could run inside the VPC without going full Lambda, which is like a complete do-over. So thanks for watching. Let's see. Normal schedule would have me back at this on Friday morning. My current project for paid work might be wrapping up though, and I'm kind of looking at just taking a break from stuff. Just so I don't have scheduled stuff every day. But barring that, that's my regular schedule. So there's some game dev. MTP switcher. I don't see anything. Web dev, VS Code extension. Anything else that I can, anybody else I can vouch for that's doing similar kind of work right now? So how about Eric.dev is doing some lower level stuff. He's doing Rust. Now, I think GStreamer I know, Warp I don't. He's talking about doing RTMP switcher, which is I believe one of the streaming protocols. So if you're looking for someplace cool to hang out, that's someplace cool to hang out. Thanks for hanging out with me. Goodbye and until next time.